Bus rapid transit, the attempt to turn bus service into essentially train service. Currently, 32 million daily passengers across more than 180 cities use bus rapid transit, but let's be honest, there are very few systems that actually live up to their promise to deliver the same speed and reliability and comfort as their subway counterparts. So today, we're exploring those that do, or at least those that get the closest. This is the top 10 bus rapid transit systems in the world. Welcome to Transit World, weekly videos on all things transportation, with a focus on the developing world. Before we jump into it, if you just subscribed because you were interested in the Mexico City airport video I did, don't worry, we'll revisit Mexico City, airport politics, and other Mexico City deep dive topics in upcoming videos. In fact, I even have a few site visits coming up in other parts of Mexico. Today, however, we are focusing on a different topic: bus rapid transit. So what is BRT? Well, simply put, bus rapid transit is a public bus service with various treatments that make bus speeds and dwell times more comparable to those on a metro system. BRT systems typically have, at a minimum, a dedicated right-of-way, elevated stations with platform-level boarding, turnstiles, or at least off-board fare collection, and priority at traffic signals and other intersection treatments to fast-track the bus. BRT is often implemented as an alternative to rail because its construction is typically cheaper, faster, and less evasive. BRT is common in cities that lack capital, either economic or political, for the creation or expansion of a subway system. The idea of giving buses preferential treatment has been around almost as long as the bus itself. And the first use of a protected busway was the East Side Trolley Tunnel in Providence, Rhode Island in 1948. The modern concept of BRT, souping up buses so well that they provide similar service levels to a subway, is typically credited to Runcorn, England, which started its service in 1971. However, I think most real transit nerds would agree that the first BRT system to really gain international attention was that in Curitiba, Brazil, which opened just a few years later in 1974. BRT really had its renaissance in the early 2000s, especially in Latin America. But in recent years, BRT expansion has slowed, and it's faced increased criticism that systems don't live up to their promises to provide high-quality, rapid service. In its most advanced stages, BRT essentially approaches a subway that runs on rubber tires and asphalt tracks. But BRT systems often fall short of approaching this metro system standard, with issues with motorists respecting the bus-only right-of-ways, traffic at intersections, overcrowding on buses, and bus bunching at stations. Today, though, I want to look at the cream of the crop. Which systems actually were able to pull off using buses as a bona fide substitute for metro system? Or at least, which ones got the closest? To pull together this analysis, I took information from a wide range of sources, but I mostly used data from the two main sources on international BRT comparison. Those two are the Institute of Transportation and Development Policy, or ITDP, and the World Resources Institute, or WRI. Just a real quick disclosure, I did used to work for WRI, although my work had pretty much nothing to do with the BRT front. Some of you might know that ITDP actually already does have a robust evaluation and ranking system for BRT. And I am going to be using this evaluation to establish a filter, but I also wanted to go a little bit deeper than this analysis and substitute in the ranking system with my own methodology. So to even be considered on this analysis, you needed to score at least a bronze classification from ITDP. This is a pretty tough standard, and the vast majority of BRT systems out there, or at least those claiming to be some version of BRT, don't have this classification. But I went even farther than just requiring a bronze classification. My personal experience has led me to believe that you need to get the details right on your system if you want to even stand a chance at providing anything near the high quality service that you find on a metro system. I've just been on too many BRTs where I left disappointed because the dedicated right-of-way was polluted by general purpose vehicles, or the buses got snarled in traffic at intersections, or stuck behind other buses at the stations, or there was long dwell times. It's just really hard to get this right. So in addition to having a bronze classification, I'm adding some additional filters. These filters help ensure that just to even make it on my list, you have all of the BRT basics down pat. After this filtering system, we're left with about 35 cities that have at least one corridor of BRT that meets these metrics. So then, to rank them, I'm going to be using again the basic criteria I did to evaluate the best subways in the world, which is based on an amended take on what Jarrett Walker claims as the most important elements of transit. The only difference here is that I'm not going to be accounting for span, since it was impossible to get good, reliable data on that. So here are the different ranking criteria that I will be using: coverage, frequency, and price. And you can see I'll be weighting them loosely based on the preferentials that Jarrett Walker outlines in his literature. All right, so let's jump into it. Number 10, Ahmedabad, India. A lot of transit nerd academic scholars out there generally agree that Ahmedabad is the best system in the country of India. This is widely touted through research as a success story of BRT. I actually spent the summer of 2015 working in Ahmedabad on an evaluation of this exact system. And I could say firsthand, and also through the surveys that we conducted, that I do think there's a lot of problems with this system that you see in person that might not be apparent in a paper analysis. So, for example, when I was there, the integrated fare system didn't work. The buses almost never kept to the headways they promised. The right-of-way was often congested, both with cars and also the occasional cow. Maybe it's improved in many ways since then, but I would not be surprised if user experience still leaves something to be desired. Number 9, Cali. Bogota takes all the fame for BRT in Colombia, but Cali does operate a pretty extensive system as well. They have 6 lines and 77 stations, and although not all of those corridors made it through the filter to make it into this exact analysis, Cali still boasts a pretty legit system. Number 8, Langzhou, China. Langzhou has a relatively new system built just in 2013 and only has about 10 kilometers on one operating line. But Langzhou makes this list because they have excellent frequencies at about 1 minute in the peak hour. This is also the first BRT to use split stations, where buses going the same direction can load from both the right and left side of the platform simultaneously. Number 7, sticking with China, with Yichang. Yichang is a small city of about 2 million people in central China, and I gotta admit, this is the only city on the list that I had never heard of before. Although it did win ITDP's Sustainable Transportation Award in 2016, which usually goes to cities that I very much have heard of. Number 6, Curitiba. The OG system that really put BRT on the map and made it trendy. Not only has this been the system that has been sourced as inspiration for pretty much every other major BRT network in the world, but even its uniquely recognizable tube stations have been replicated by other systems as well. Number 5, Bogota. I gotta admit, I'm actually pretty surprised that this was only number 5. This is, at least personally, my favorite BRT on the list. This isn't the original BRT system, wasn't one of the first, but it really did push the boundaries of what BRT could and should be when it first opened in 2000. This was the first BRT system with extensive use of passing and express service lanes, multi-bay stations, and extensive intersection treatments and bus-only flyovers. Bogota's Transmilenio system is also the most ridden BRT in the entire world, and it's been the inspiration of a new wave of interest in BRT that really started when it opened again in the early 2000s. Number 4, Istanbul. Istanbul doesn't have as robust a network as Bogota's Transmilenio, but it makes it high on the list because it has ridiculously frequent service. It's the public transit workhorse for a lot of the east-west travel across Istanbul, and it's one of the fastest BRT systems in existence. Before we head to the top 3, just a quick plug to please go ahead and give a like and subscribe if you're actually enjoying this content. If you were really hoping this was just going to be a sequel to the Mexico City airport video I did a couple weeks ago, you can go ahead and give me a dislike, but make sure you drop a comment as well just to help the YouTube algorithm along here. You can also find me on Patreon, where unfortunately you won't be able to pick up this really cool t-shirt that I'm wearing right now, but you can pick up some other Transit World swag, including t-shirts and hoodies and a few other things as well. A couple honorable and dishonorable mentions. Caracas, Venezuela actually ranked quite well on the list here. This is a system that's small but decent, at least I think so. It's really hard actually to verify data for the system. This is also by far the cheapest system on the entire list. It's hard to tell exactly how much it costs. As far as I can tell, it's either free or it costs significantly less than 1 cent per ride. A quick shout out to the country of Brazil, which in many ways is kind of the birthplace of BRT and is still strongly represented in this analysis. 7 of the 35 cities that made the cut were in Brazil. Another tip of the hat to Colombia, which also had 7 cities that qualified in this list of 35. Again, Bogota really takes all the fame here, but Colombia in general is a just absolute great place for BRT. On the dishonorable side, I was a little disappointed with how Jakarta and their Transjakarta system fared. Jakarta is a huge city where transit is really dependent on BRT as the backbone, but it only scored 25 on this list. Anecdotally, this is maybe one of the most disappointing BRT systems that I've ever ridden on. Transjakarta is the largest BRT network in the world by corridor length with over 250 kilometers of corridor, but it just gets snarled in traffic in spots where the right-of-way is not respected and bottlenecks where service enters general public traffic lanes. It's just really missing that little detail of service level that would help it bump up to a world-class system. Also, a dishonorable mention really just to the US. There's only 1 city that even qualified for this list, and you're not going to guess what it was. Well, maybe you will, I don't know. It was Hartford, Connecticut, which ranked 33 out of the 35 that we looked at. All right, time for the top 3. In the 3rd spot was Mexico City. Mexico City has a truly impressive system. And let's just be honest, you know I like the system when I went through the trouble of procuring a system map and placing it right next to me. It's the only city on this list that also has a world-class metro system. And at least in my opinion, Mexico City BRT offers the best sightseeing BRT opportunity in the world when you're sitting on the front seats at the top of the double-decker Line 7 buses going down Reforma. Number 2, Guangzhou, China. Guangzhou is often pointed to as the best BRT system in China, so not surprised at all to see it placed high on the list here. One of the things that makes Guangzhou system great is their peak passenger flows, which get almost up to 30,000 peak passengers per hour per direction. This is second only to Transmilenio, and this is really impressive given that the system length is only 22 kilometers. And Guangzhou's system really is all about capacity. They've got the longest BRT stations in the world at over 250 meters that can accommodate a world's best 1 bus every 10 seconds. And at number 1 is Rio de Janeiro. Rio's got a big system with over 200 stations, 150 kilometers of right-of-way. They've really got a lot of what you need to get on the top of this list. They've got 4 main corridors of BRT, 2 of which were awarded the ITDP Silver rating, and 2 were awarded the Gold rating. Rio actually has more corridor mileage that was awarded the Gold designation by ITDP than any other city in the world. So that's it. That's my list. I'll leave the top 20 on the screen for a second in case you'd like to pause and take a deeper look at any of them. That's it for today. Hope you enjoyed the content. If you did, please go ahead and drop a like, hit the subscribe button, and perhaps even go check out my Patreon account. Until next time.